I want to go through some key unanswered questions at this stage, get your views in on all of that. So let's have those graphics up on this on the screen if we can. All right, so the big questions, number one, who pushed the switch to the cutoff position? As Captain Ranganathan says over there, there will be clarity on, who was speaking to who in the cockpit. That's not come out in the crash, in the report itself, the preliminary one. It should perhaps have come out because the cockpit voice recorder would have detected who was speaking at that stage. The second key point over here was the fuel switch deliberately pushed to the cutoff position. Captain Ranganathan seems to suggest that that was the case. Let's move to the other key points over here. Why was there a 25-second delay in reactivating the switches? In fact, let me take that question to Captain Ranganathan. Captain, I wouldn't actually call this a delay, but there was an attempt to relight. And this is actually quite important. If you suggest that the pilots were, or one of the pilots was potentially depressed, suicidal, use whatever word you want, why then was there an attempt at relighting the engines? In fact, it was a successful attempt. They just didn't have enough altitude to climb away.
Now, when you have the pressonitis, something maybe made him do it. And when the other pilot said, "Why did you do that?" that would have triggered a reaction. So he's tried to put it back. And when, all electronics to restart, it takes a couple of seconds. It takes 1 second to put it to off. Then you need a minimum 1 second before you can reselect for the electronic engine control to reset its data. So, and whether he's done it immediately or not, only when you say 25 seconds, so all this conversation has been taking place, and only then he's selected the switch. And by then it was too late because the engine is wound down, the fuel is cut off. So for it to restart, there's no windmilling speed for it to activate. You need more than 270 knots for windmill to suck in the fuel, and even if the pumps are on. So that would be the reason for the 25-second delay.
They'd also be one of the pilots would, assuming your theory is right, be trying to figure out what exactly was happening. I mean, there's a human factor here. Things don't instantly happen in quite that same way. Let's move to the other one, unanswered questions. Number 4, was there a system malfunction? At this juncture, perhaps that can be ruled out because there's been no notice from General Electric, the engine manufacturer, or Boeing, the aircraft manufacturer, to operators around the world. And they would have done that immediately after the data was downloaded. Let's move to the next point. Were flaps correctly configured? In fact, yes. We can keep that old argument aside now. The debris of the flap lever has been found. The flaps were correctly deployed on the wings. These are surfaces which enable, in the takeoff scenario, an aircraft to climb away easier. So they were correctly deployed. That theory is out the window. Number 6, can data prove how the switches moved? Captain, you want to take this? And I think this lies at the heart of what we are talking about. Does the DFDR say that the switches moved? The flight data recorder.
It will show, and the cockpit voice recorder, like when it is, if anything, like here, you have to physically move it. But like any circuit breaker or any other selection, the CVR area mic will pick up the noise. Like when a circuit breaker is deliberately selected out, the click sound that you get is different from what happens when it's an electrical malfunction where the CB pops out. And if you go through the NTSB counter on the Silk Air crash, where the captain had deactivated the DFDR and the CVR series, they identified that it was a deliberate action only by the sound of the CB. It didn't pop out because of a power failure. It was a manual selection.
Right. All right.
Just like that, they'll be able to identify if this, they can easily establish
All right.
what was the selection.
Look, Captain, we'll leave it over there. But Captain Mohan Ranganathan clearly indicating that switching off the fuel of the aircraft, the fuel flow, was done deliberately by one of the pilots, which raises larger questions on perhaps the mental condition of the pilot, issues like depression, what else was actually going on, and that this wasn't perhaps a mechanical issue. But that's his viewpoint. We will continue to report what the report has to say, bring in different experts as well.